What's up? Vegas Zeitgeist. And the third segment, like always, with Gina and Alexander and her story. And I was so used to have my partner in crime next to me, Jay Jordan, who did that absolutely fantastic biographical sketch about me a couple of years ago, what we used. And if you want to have a biographical sketch, I really can recommend to do something like that, because all of a sudden you realize who you really are and really get that essence of yourself in the positive. We only focus on the positive. There's enough negative somewhere. But when you have that, then with this you change kind of your own perspective of yourself. So just want to make that sure that I get that out. Info at stepup-communications. If you like some information about it. I do not know Jay Jordan's email, because it is so j.j.something. Send me the email and I will forward to him. Okay, so last segment we were I left Destin, Florida, to fly down to Tucson, to fly down actually to Phoenix to see my, I would say, stepfather's house. He died a couple of days before I left Germany. I got the notice that he died before, and that was a couple of days before I left Germany to the United States for my 6-week trip to find my real dad. Anyways, Uli said something before, to be at the right time at the right place. I was at the right place to get to fly with a little private jet from Destin to Phoenix or to Tucson, and then I drove down to Phoenix. But my experience, the flying experience, 7 hours in that little plane, and every time when you look down, what is this? Texas. What is this? Texas. What is that? Nothing. Texas. So as I said before, Texas was not my cup of tea, but I was glad to be in Arizona, and I remember entering the house of my, of Ben McAvoy, the test pilot. We talked about that before. The spirit was gone. I was there in 1993, the first time I visited him there, and it was Ben, everything was full of him. And then, 10 years, 12 years later, he was not there anymore. His housekeeper was there, and it was so empty. The spirit was gone, and even not being with this person for a long time, he was still in my life somehow. And then realizing he is not here anymore, nowhere. I cannot talk on the phone. He was gone. So that was pretty intense. And combined with my whole trip anyways, combined with my weeks before when I met my real father the first time in my life, combined with all of a sudden having my family I never knew before behind me, and the new family, the new aunt, and all this, this really, really deep, intense emotions that brought me kind of shaking when I got to this empty house and Ben was not there anymore. So, but weird thing, the housekeeper, for whatever reason, she said, I think that is what he would like you to have as well. And she gave me a hat, a baseball hat, what he was wearing always. So that was kind of, okay, my dad's hat, something. So I took it with me, and we'll plays a role later on, so keep that in mind. Dad's hat. And I flew back to Florida. I had a good time there. I met wonderful people. And after that, after 6 weeks, or 8 weeks, I think it was, almost 8 weeks in the United States, finding my roots, finding my dad, finding my, saying goodbye to my stepdad, and had that paper, what I needed for my American citizenship. I had it in my suitcase.
When was that?
That was in 2005. And so it was kind of, the first mission was accomplished. I was ready to go back to Germany, and because I had that, I found my people, I had my paperwork to get my American passport, and I flew back home, and it was that was end of February. Was it end of February? End of February or end of January? No, end of February. So then coming back, and I had already everything solved, there was nothing anymore. And I stayed at my mom's house, and I stayed at friend's house. And then it was kind of, waiting for my passport, and what I needed to do with this one sheet of paper, what I needed signed from my dad. I had it now. I had to go to the consulate, and this gentleman who told me about 6 months before, when I asked him, hey, I'm actually an American citizen, my mom German, my father American, I have a German citizenship, but I would like to stay in the States for the second part of my life. He said, no problem. The only thing you need to do is, this paper needs to be signed by your dad. And I said, wonderful. I don't know where my dad is. And he said at that time, and I know you're going to find him. And sure enough, then 6 months, a little bit more than 6 months later, I went back to Düsseldorf with my paperwork in my hand to the same consulate. I said, sir,
I found him.
I found him. And I said, I told you. Yeah, so that was a little bit of at the right time, at the right place.
How did you go about finding your dad?
I went online that time. Well, actually, the story before, I tried years before, and I mentioned that in the other segments, shows, years before, through the military computer to find, there was no way. And then in 2004, things were more developed, and there was a tool, it was called IntelliSearch or something like that, and I got 236 Richard Norman Alexanders out of that, so I had to make my choice. Who is it? And
how did you make that choice?
Well, intuition, and I sent 10 letters out, and one came back. And that
out of
was
230, you send out 10?
Yes. And my listeners or my viewers from the former shows tune in next Friday in the third segment, and the series of Jean Alexander's story is going to be continued. And the fourth segment is about you.
About me? Well,
yes.
Let's do it.
Thank you for tuning in.